So this is why I don't trust Partysnax, and it kind of leads into this personal theory I have that Partysnax is Numenex. First off, the reason I don't trust Partysnax is because he's just duplicitous. I mean, he himself even admits it's not wise to trust a Dova, which is a great manipulation if you think about it. Can you really trust the person who says you shouldn't trust them because that seems honest? So when we use the Elder Scroll and go back in time, when we see Alduin banished, pretty much the last thing he's saying is he is going to get his vengeance on Partysnax. And Partysnax also tells us that he's been waiting on the throat of the world for the return of Alduin. Begging the ultimate question, how did Alduin make it to Helgen upon his return? If Alduin is sworn himself to fighting Partysnax, and Partysnax is saying he's waiting for Alduin, where's that combat? So this gets into my theory of Partysnax being Numenex. We know that Numenex is not a dragon name. It doesn't add up in the dragon language. And there's been countless theories as what it could mean, like now a man is cruel or one eye something, but they don't work exactly. How does that suggest Partysnax is Numenex? It kind of ties into what Partysnax does currently because of this guy. And this guy is pretty important because he served in the Battle of the Red Mountain with this guy, King Olaf One Eye. They lost the Battle of Red Mountain and came back to Skyrim, where apparently Jurgen Windcaller meditated on that loss and decided that men were abusing the voice. Back to this guy who, when he won the War of Succession, put a bunch of tongues, people who were capable of shouting, into positions of power. This guy would have also been a tongue. And because of this guy, we know there was a conspiracy at the time. There was something being covered up. We don't have confirmation as to what it is, but we know there is a question. Going back to his observation that men were now being abusive of the way of the voice, we get back to Partysnax, who probably now regrets his decision, as he is sitting there on the throat of the world watching his brethren just be slaughtered because of a shout that we now know exists, Dragonrend. So the age-old question of how did King Olaf subdue a dragon is only an age-old question because the knowledge of that shout was lost over time. When you ask Partysnax if he knows about Numenex, he says something very peculiar, and if you think of the way dragons speak, we can say that he's speaking in metaphor. He used to visit Numenex from time to time. This would be physically impossible. He's white. In broad nighttime, he'd be seen against the sky. Broad daylight, he would just be seen. He's not physically flying to and fro. But if you think about it as in moments of lucidity, he even said the dragon had forgotten his name. If he was trapped and then consistently being addled with Dragonrend, which he admits is something that their brains cannot fathom, then he would consistently be having to come back to some form of clarity until somebody decides to torture him with this Dragonrend shout over and over again. Thus the conspiracy. This guy saw that abuse and decided to work out a deal with Olaf. Olaf wanted to be king and had captured that great dragon Numenex prior to the War of Succession. The theory here is that Jurgen Windcaller agreed to help Olaf One Eye win the War of Succession on the condition of releasing Partysnax. Jurgen Windcaller established the way of the voice. However, we see that the head of the order is Partysnax. We see how the device works when we subdue Odahviing. So this would have been the state Partysnax was in, having Dragonrend consistently used on him until he didn't even remember who he was, and then contingent upon Jurgen Windcaller helping Olaf, they release Partysnax from this contraption. They find a skull of a lesser dragon to continue this facade of Numenex having died. However, Parthynax could play the long game, so Parthynax decides to go along with Jurgen Windcaller and help him establish the way of the voice. And if you think about it, this is sort of a anti-Second Amendment, where you are now taking away the use of the voice as a weapon. And that's important because he can play the long game and wait for the return of Alduin. Alduin comes back with a vengeance, set to kill Parthynax, not feeling his brothers anywhere around, but it doesn't matter. He can take out Parthynax and then go resurrect all the dragons. But Parthynax says, wait, brother, I've done us a favor. I've solved the error of my ways. Now, they do not know how to use the voice to defeat us anymore. It doesn't exist. I have monopolized the voice to a bunch of pacifists. And he says, if you don't believe me, test it for yourself. Go find the armies of men and see if they can use this voice against you. However, Parthynax found himself in a dilemma, because now the Dragonborn presents himself or herself, and he doesn't know what to do. He's got the ultimate dragon slayer who hasn't been seen for thousands and thousands of years, and the king of dragons, and it is the ultimate showdown. It is destined to happen, and that is a point in time that dragons cannot see past. The one advantage to keeping Parthynax alive is that, you can actually tame him with the bend will shout, so he can be something to ride, and that's pretty cool. I mean, it's always cool to have something unique. I'm always down for keeping unique items, like Ysgrimmor's spoon. Always make sure that's in my inventory, straight to my chest. And Parthynax being a named dragon, it's a little bit more badass than just riding something that says Blood Dragon. But other than that, I don't trust him. Until I get Bend Will. Don't.